everyone's talking about the ASI Air Pro and the new version of it. I bought myself one about a year ago, and I've been using it on and off, and I thought I would give you guys an honest review. Welcome back, Beardos, and today I'll be doing a review of the ASI Air Pro. Now, a lot of people are talking about this little device, or have been talking about it for a while. It started off with the ASI Air Pro, the ASI Air, and then the ASI Air Pro came out, which is the second version. That's the version that I have. And now there's a new version that is supposed to improve the Wi-Fi range. And so I thought I'd give you guys kind of a review of it. Now, I bought this with my own money, so I will give you guys the most honest review I possibly can. One of the things for me is that I'm a little bit old school, so I like to use a PC. I like the control that it gives me, and you know, I might be a little bit biased or a little bit used to that, and but there were just so many people who were giving this thing good reviews, and I had seen people in my astronomy club that were using it and swore by it. So I went out and bought one, and I tried to use it. I will say there are some things that I really like about it. It's a perfect size, especially if you're traveling. This is a great size device. It uses a Raspberry Pi, which means that it's using Linux, which means that it's going to be a lot more stable than with Windows. And I think everybody who's used a Windows PC for astronomy or anything else will know that, like, you'll log in and all of a sudden you lose like a half hour because Windows updates have to go, which you should always update your computer, by the way. But so these are, you know, they'll tend to be a little bit more stable for sure, and there are parts of it that are great. Like, for example, the polar alignment routine is fantastic. It actually is very similar, if not the exact same routine as what's used in SharpCap, which is a very accurate polar alignment routine. So I really love that. It does do a good job with automation, and it comes with everything that you need. Like, it even came with a thumb drive that you can use to actually save off your data. So I thought those things were pretty neat. But I did find it very limiting, and there was a lot more things that I didn't like about it than I did like about it. So the first thing that I didn't like about it is, yes, it does automation, but you know, it has a very limited catalog, and it doesn't have like any sort of framing wizard or anything like that. So you can't actually frame up your target unless you had done it beforehand. But then comes the next problem. The next problem is, even if you know the RA and DEC of your target and you want to set that up, it doesn't have really the ability to do anything with a camera rotation, as far as I found. And so if it's there, you know, I haven't found it. And because of that, you can't really frame things up. So you can go out in the field, you can find targets, you can image them, but you can't rotate them to the orientation that you want, which I think is like really, it's a really big thing. Additionally, I didn't find that the UI is like not that great, and you have to use a tablet or your phone. I was using my phone. I have a Pixel 6. I was using my phone, and they didn't have any sort of like PC or Mac application that you could use with a computer, which would make it much easier because you're looking at like very large images. And so if you have like an iPad, like an iPad mini or a phone, it's very hard to see whether or not you've gotten things just right in terms of the sharpness of your image and you're focusing right, or you know, any of that stuff. So I found that like extremely limiting. A lot of people complained about the Wi-Fi on it. The Wi-Fi is horrific. You know, I think even the videos that I've seen where people have said like the Wi-Fi is terrible, I don't even think those speak really to how bad the Wi-Fi actually is. You could be standing right next to it, and it's downloading at like, like 78K or 100K per second, which is like unbelievably slow. And it does have a feature where you can connect it to like a Wi-Fi, like your home Wi-Fi if you're near your house. And that does a little bit better. But still, when you do that, you have to go on 2.4 gigahertz. You can't go on 5 gigahertz. And when you go to 2.4 gigahertz, things get even slower. So that part is just absolutely terrible. But the worst part about the ASI Air Pro is that it only works with ZWO products. And that's fine if all you have is ZWO stuff, but not very many serious astrophotographers only have ZWO products. And when I mean ZWO products, I mean like their entire product line. So to give you an example, I actually have non-ZWO cameras. I have a QHY camera for guiding, which I can't use. And I had to actually hook up an inferior ZWO planetary camera that I had to get my rig working with this ASI Air Pro. And there's really no reason for it. Because I assume that since they're using a Raspberry Pi, and they're probably using some, custom version of, the Raspberry Pi operating system, then they're also probably using the Indy drivers to control the telescope mounts and their own cameras and things like that. And the Indy drivers, there are Indy drivers for QHY cameras. There's Indy drivers for all sorts of focus motors. But yeah, the focus motor was the thing that actually like put the nail in the coffin, because I use a Pegasus focus motor on my William Optics telescope, and I use a Celestron focus motor on my Edge HD rig, and I could not get the autofocus to work in either, and had to go back to like using a Bahtinov mask and connecting my laptop. So I ended up having to use a laptop anyway, unless you buy the ZWO focus motor. Now again, this is not cheap, This is $400 or $300 or something like that. I think I paid $279 for it. And maybe in the world of astronomy, that's cheaper than most things. But it's not cheap by any means. And I think that it should be able to work with things other than ZWO products. So that was what kind of like did it in for me, and why I'll likely be selling it. It does what it's supposed to do, that's for sure. It does automate your imaging setups, and it is very portable and all of that. So that's for sure. And you gotta hand it to them. It's actually like a very nice. It's like their first version was kind of plastic. This one is like a nice metal box. It can actually survive, and it looks like something that's durable. But at the same time, it's nothing that I could use. I think losing the control and then losing the ability to use my equipment made this kind of like a infeasible solution. So what did I replace it with? I actually replaced it with this guy. I got this on Amazon. It's a Melee or something like that PC. It has an Intel processor on it, and it's a full Windows computer, which it still bothers me that you have to use Windows for it, even though I like Windows. I'm a Windows guy, but like when you're out in the field, I think Windows is a little heavy, but it's fine. It is a full Windows PC. It has 4 USB ports, so I can plug anything I need to in there. It's powered by a 12 volt USB-C, and because it's a 12 volt USB-C, I can power this from a battery with no problem. And it runs the entire gambit of every software that I need. So price wise, if you compare them, they actually cost about the same. The newer model of this is more expensive than this, but certainly you have to buy the software unless you use like open source software like Nina. I don't. I use Sequence Generator Pro. But if you compare the total cost for this, if you have to like replace equipment, and this guy, which lets you do everything that you need, this one's out every time. So I'll do a further review. I just used it on my first session a few nights ago. It worked beautifully. I've used it to get darks and things like that. It's been working great. But I'm going to wait a little bit to give you guys a full review of this. But for now, I just wanted to go over this because a lot of people are talking about, are giving this like rave reviews, and it deserves some good reviews. It's got some really good features. I don't want to make it sound like it's just so terrible. But, if you're really serious about astrophotography and, you have different equipment, I don't think this is the device for you. So nothing against ZWO. I love their products. I use their products all the time. I have 3 cameras from ZWO, and all of the great pictures that I've taken, or all of my best pictures, I should say, were taken with ZWO cameras. It's just that I think this little device is a little too limiting for me. If you want to see more review videos of my equipment and the things that I use, definitely let me know. Again, I really appreciate your support and supporting the channel. Leave me a comment, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.